All right, let's review of what kind of circle we would put on our graph when our signs are the less than or equal to or the greater than or equal to. If you see the line underneath the inequality, you know you're going to have to fill your circle in. Okay? If it's just the less than or greater than and the no line, it's going to be open. That's pretty easy. Okay? Another thing, so let's try this one. If it is pointing to the left, see how it's pointing to the left? If I were to draw a line right here, see how that looks like an arrow pointing this way and how it also looks like this? So that means you would shade to the left, all right? Here, if we look at it, we can see that it's pointing to the right. And if I draw a line, it looks like an arrow pointing to the right. And this is an arrow pointing to the right. So you would shade to the right. Okay. Now let's go over when we're gonna flip the inequality sign. Here's our steps. Let me go ahead and put those right there so we can look at them. All right. My first step says to distribute. There's nothing to distribute, so I go to step 2. Step 2 says to combine. There's nothing to combine, so I go to step 3. Get the variable on one side. Well, look at there. A variable's already on one side. I don't have to do anything. Step 4 says get constants on the opposite side of the variable. And here's my variable, and here's a constant. So this is the constant that needs to be on the opposite side of the variable. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to subtract 4. Subtract 4. Then I'm left with negative 2x is greater than 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, negative 12. All right. So I just did get constants on the opposite side of the variable. Now I need to do step 5, get variable by itself. So I'm going to divide by a negative 2, divide by negative 2. When you divide by a negative number in this step right here in step 5, that's when you flip your sign. Okay, so I'm going to be left with x is less than 6. And if I wanted to shade that or graph it, and 6 was right here, I would put an open circle. It's pointing to the left, so I would shade to the left. Okay. All right, let's look at this one right here. This is another example of when you would flip your inequality sign. All right, step 1 says distribute. There's nothing to distribute. Step 2 says to combine. Nothing to combine. Step 3 says get the variable on one side, and boom, it is already done. Step 4 says get constant on the opposite side of the variable. Here's my variable. Here's the constant. I need to get rid of it. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. Okay. And then I'm left with 12 minus 5 is 7 is less than 3x. Okay. Then it says get the variable by itself. So I just need to divide by 3, divide by 3. Okay. So 7 divided by 3 is 2.3. So we can say 2.3 or 7 over 3, all right, is less than x. But my variable is on my right, and it needs to be on my left, which means these guys have got to switch. Okay. And if I were shading that, and I had 2.3 right here, my circle would be open, and it's telling me to shade to the right. Okay. All right, now let's look at this one. You have to go through the steps. These steps are like a checklist for you. If you can't do number 1, go to number 2. All right, so number 1 says to distribute, and I can do that because I have parentheses. When you see parentheses, that means you need to distribute, and that's when we multiply. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. That's right, why I write minus 8. I just bring down my plus 5, my sign, my 4, because I need to distribute this positive 3 to this x and get positive 3x. And this to this positive 2 and get positive 6. Okay, I have now done step 1. I have distributed. So now I'm going to move to step 2, which is combine like terms. So I have this negative 8 plus 5. I'll bring down my 2x. Negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3, less than. And then when I'm over here, I have 4 and 6. Remember, you can only combine like terms on this expression and then combine like terms with each other on this expression. Can't go between the two. 4 plus 6 is 10, and then I have that plus 3x left. That's a 3. Okay. I have now done combining like terms, and the next step says get variable on one side, and we do that by mama says come here. This is mama, it's going to stay, so I need to bring over this positive 2x. So I'll subtract 2x here, subtract 2x here. Okay, let's go ahead and put our line down. Then I'm left with negative 3 is less than 10 plus x, because 3 minus 2 is 1, and I can just keep it like that. Okay, so that was what? Step 3? I just did step 3. Okay, now step 4 says get constants on the opposite side of the variable. Here's my variable, here's the constant. So I need to subtract 10 here, subtract 10 here. That gives me negative 13 is less than x. All right, step 5 says get variable by itself, and it's already done. Okay, so there we go. And if I wanted to graph that, oh, hold on a second. My variable's on the right side, and it needs to be on the left. So that means I need to do this. Okay, because if we don't do that, then we get our graph wrong. If I'm at negative 13, my circle is open. This is telling me to shade to the right. All right, let's look at this one. Step 1 says to distribute. There's nothing to distribute. There's no parentheses here. So I go to step 2, combine like terms. All right, I can combine 2x minus 3x. That gives me negative 1x or negative x. Then I have down this minus 4. All right, I can't distribute over here. I can't combine like terms, so I'm just going to bring it on down. All right, so I just combined like terms. I couldn't distribute, so I went to step 2. Step 3 says get the variable on one side. I have 2 variables, all right? I have negative 4 and negative 1 coefficient. Negative 4 is smaller, so I'm going to add 4x, add 4x, all right? Then I'm left with 3x minus 4 greater than 12, okay? And that was step 3. Get the variable on one side. You just have to follow the steps. Okay. Step 4 says get constant on the opposite side of the variable. Here's my variable. Here's my constant. So I need to add 4. Add 4. I'm left with 3x, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. All right. And that was get constants. Oh, that's kind of hard to see. All right. Then my last step says get the variable by itself, which means I just need to divide by 3. So then I'm left with x is greater than, see, 16 divided by 3 isn't a nice number. It's 5, we'll say 5.3 or 6. Okay. When I do that, my dot would be open, and I would be shading to the right. Okay, let's see, how many more? Okay. This one right here, I can't distribute. Nope, I can't combine like terms. And the next step says get variable on one side. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to subtract 6x here, subtract 6x here. Then I'm left with 10. Let's pretend this says or equal to. 10 is less than or equal to 4x minus 2. Okay. The next step says get constants on the opposite side of the variable. Here's my variable. Here's my constant. So I'm going to add 2, add 2. I'm left with 12 is less than or equal to 4x. Last step says get variable by itself. So divide by 4, and I have 3 is less than or equal to x. But my variable is on the right, which means I need to flip it. Okay. All right. When I graph this, my circle would be closed. My arrow is pointing to the right, so I would shade to the right. All right, let's try this one. Okay, I can't distribute. I can't combine like terms. My variable's already on one side. Step 4 says get constants on the opposite side of the variable. Here's my variable. Here's my constant. So I need to subtract 7 on both sides. So then I'm left with negative 21. X is greater than or equal to 31. Okay, that was get constant on the opposite side of the variable. Now I just have to get the variable by itself. So I'm going to divide by negative 21. Divide by negative 21. X is, I divided by a negative, so I have to switch my sign. Okay, and then 231 divided by negative 21 gives me negative 11. If I were to graph this, I would have a closed circle and I would shade to the right. Okay, all right, that's it. Come on.